Hello everybody, it's Brad Dohack here. Today we have a very special guest that I wanted to introduce you to. This came as a special request from last month's video. Had a viewer who actually reached out to me and had said that it would be really helpful if we had some information about a 1031 exchange. And so what I want to do is I want to introduce you to just an awesome person. Her name is Theresa from Midland IRA. And if you could tell us a little bit about who you are and what the company does, that would be fantastic.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for having me, Brad. My name's Theresa. I am with Midland IRA and 1031, and I actually help clients with the 1031 exchanges. We actually offer two services with our company. We're a self-directed IRA administrator, and we are also a qualified intermediary for 1031 exchanges.
Okay.
It's a very simple process, and our job is to make it as easy as possible for the taxpayer to also defer taxes on the sale of their investment property or business use property.
So right now we're in a much different time than we were, say, 8 years ago.
Definitely.
Right?
Yes.
So the market has changed from that perspective. We used to be foreclosures and short sales, and nobody had any equity in their real estate. And so now lots of people have equity, which is a fantastic position to be in. So tell us about what a 1031 exchange is and how people may be able to take advantage of that.
Absolutely. So 1031, I like to refer to it as a gift, really, for investment property owners and business owners that own their own property that they operate their business out of. What it does is it allows these taxpayers to defer paying the capital gains tax that would have otherwise applied to the sale of their property, provided they follow just a few simple rules and eventually purchase more investment or business use property.
Okay.
And that's ultimately what we do, is we make sure they understand what the rules are and they follow those deadlines.
Because that is one of the biggest reasons that people don't do things sometimes, is because of the tax implications.
Correct.
All right, and so the 1031 exchange is deferring that tax obligation?
Exactly. It's really allowing them to roll all of the equity from the sale of their property into a new property without having to pay Uncle Sam those taxes.
As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't get much better than that, because I have lots of people who that's the number one thing. Now, this does not work for your personal residence, but your personal residence, there are different tax advantages for selling.
Correct.
This is strictly on investment property.
That's a great point, Brad. That is something that we always touch on with our prospective clients, or anyone that will call in and ask about it, is making sure that the property they are selling and ultimately acquiring will qualify for 1031. Because as you stated, personal residents do not qualify, second homes do not qualify, properties that are held for immediate resale. Although those are investments for these people that are buying and selling them, they are not necessarily deemed investment property with respect to the 1031 exchange. So the ideal properties that you would be seeing in an exchange would be a rental property, commercial property, even vacant land.
Sure.
All real estate qualifies for 1031 as long as it is held for investment or business use purposes.
Okay, so if I don't have to know that I'm going to do a 1031 exchange on my investment property when I initially buy it. So let's say that I already own an investment property. It doesn't have to be classified as 1031. I can actually decide that I want to do a 1031 with the property that I have, with the existing
Absolutely. That is such a great question, because that does come up from a lot of people. It doesn't need to be designated, so to speak, as a 1031 property when they first buy it. They do need to designate the 1031 before closing on the sale of that property. The biggest mistake that investors make is failing to actually get the exchange set up prior to closing on the sale. We will have people call us immediately after closing or even a couple of weeks after closing, thinking they still have that opportunity. Once you leave the closing table, if you do not have the exchange set up, the opportunity is lost.
Okay, so this all has to be taken care of before closing of the existing investment property.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
And so talk to us about how you come into play with all of this. What is your role as the, for the 1031 company in this process?
So one of the major rules of the regulation is that there has to be a qualified intermediary in place to facilitate the exchange. And that is technically what our role is. We're an independent third party that's there to facilitate the exchange, and that's it. So we prepare the necessary documentation for the exchange, and we will coordinate with the respective closing agents on what would be required in each transaction to satisfy the 1031 requirements.
Okay.
And most importantly, we escrow the proceeds from the sale, and we hold them on behalf of the taxpayer until it's time to close on the purchase of the new property.
Got it. It can't come back in their own personal bank account or wallet.
Correct.
It has to stay in that account so that it can go straight towards the new property.
Yes.
Now, from a real estate broker's perspective, there is a certain time frame that the investor has to identify a new property to purchase.
Yes.
Can we just touch on, the parameters of that?
Yes, that is probably the most critical part of the exchange that everyone should be aware of, because they don't have an indefinite amount of time to complete the exchange. So they have 180 days from closing on the sale to complete the exchange. So they need to close on all intended purchases within 180 days.
Okay.
Within the first 45 days, they need to identify what they are considering purchasing in the exchange. So this is where you would be critical in this whole process, is to make sure that the client is actively looking for those replacement properties, getting them identified. And I've even seen clients go so far as to go under contract and have it set to close pretty quickly after their sale closes.
Okay.
So there's nothing to stop the client from going under contract for a new purchase even before they closed on their sale. So they could set it up where if we close on November 8th on their sale, they could have their purchase set up to close November 10th.
Okay.
So, but that 45-day window is really the only flexibility that they will have in this entire exchange process.
And so what happens if we find, let's say that we find a new investment property, we've designated this is the one we're gonna, and then something happens. What if something happens in that transaction and we're outside of that 45 days, now we're 60 days and past the closing date of the previous property?
Yes.
What happens?
Well, hopefully they identified a couple of backup properties, because technically they are allowed to identify up to 3 properties of any value whatsoever. They're not obligated to purchase all 3, but for instances like that, it would be nice to have 1 or 2 backups in case your primary choice falls through for whatever reason.
Perfect.
You can identify more than 3 properties. There would be additional restrictions placed on that. But most people try to keep it to 1 to 3 properties.
Sure.
If they fall past their 45th day, and let's say all 3 properties are just no longer viable options, they are unfortunately unable to make new identifications.
Okay.
So they are stuck with whatever list they have as of day 45.
Got
which
it.
is, again, I think why a lot of clients are really pushing to get their exchange not just identified, but completed in that 45-day window.
Sure, because even though you have 6 months,
yes,
if one of them stretches out a long period of time and the other 2 go, they get sold,
exactly,
that could cause a potential issue. So that's where we would come into play, identify the right properties in the quickest amount of time possible. That would make the most sense for the investor.
Yes.
Awesome.
Yes.
So if there's a lot more that we could talk about with 1031 exchanges. We don't have time to do everything. So that being said, if the people watching this video have a question or are interested in a 1031 exchange, how can they find more information out about you as a company?
They can contact us. We have a very easy phone number to remember. It's 333-1031. We also have a website, www.midland1031.com. They're welcome to stop by our office if they're local. Myself, my colleagues are here. We'll be able to answer any questions that they have.
That's awesome. And by the way, not only is Theresa a wealth of knowledge, but a ton of fun. Everybody that you interact with at Midland is just super great to work with. We've done plenty of deals together, and there's a self-directed IRA portion of what they do as well, so there's many options, and the staff has always been fantastic. We've known each other for a lot of years, so I want to thank you.
Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate this.
You bet. Hope you found it valuable, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks so much.
Thank you.